unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Anthony Joshua wants to face Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder in Saudi Arabia. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It definitely helps the channel, and I appreciate you guys. Now, let's jump right into the mix. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you are new, you know, I'm always uploading pretty much daily content for the last several years. Now, link in the description. Sky Sports had a very interesting article. You know, they posted some recent stuff. As you see, Exhibit A, AJ wants Wilder or Fury in Saudi Arabia, meaning the winner of that. And pull it right up. Anthony Joshua receives, quote, huge sight offer to face Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury winner in Saudi Arabia. Anthony Joshua's team have received a huge sight offer, right? Wilder defends against Fury, Las Vegas, February 22nd, while Joshua plans to put his WBA, IBF, WBO belts at stake against Kubrat Pulev in London in May or June. But the Matchroom boxing boss wants to split a massive fight purse down the middle for Joshua and the reigning WBC champion, you know, Wilder Fury winner, after holding talks with Saudi officials. Quote, we have to try and make this happen, Hearn told Sky Sports. Right now, the fight that Anthony Joshua wants is the winner of Wilder and Fury. We've been there before. Both guys turned down 60-40 for that fight. Now we have no other option but to offer them 50-50 because the fight will never happen, subject to the boss giving the thumbs up, which I think he knows that's the way to make this fight. We have a huge sight offer in place that fight to take place. We have a huge sight offer in place for that fight to take place. Really weird with the quote. Asked about Saudi Arabia, Hearn added, it's a big option. We have a partnership out there in Saudi Arabia. They put money up for the Andy Ruiz fight. Everything they promised, they delivered. They want this fight bad, and when they've got that kind of attitude and mentality, it's going to be difficult to beat. Bulgarian Pulev is next in line for Joshua, IBF mandatory challenger, with a fight announcement expected in the middle of February as Hearn assesses possible venues, right? Kubrat Pulev is the front runner, said Hearn. I think we've established the IBF mandatory was called before the WBO. Pulev is the fight for me and more importantly for the boss, AJ. He wants it here. He's boxed now in Saudi Arabia for his last fight. He's boxed in New York before that. For me, it's time to come home. The bad news is Kubrat Pulev wants as much money as possible for this fight, and he realizes there's more money in Istanbul or Saudi Arabia or the Congo or Nigeria, but AJ is going to call the shots. He may end up having to let the Pulev fight go if he won't fight in the places that we've liked him to fight, and that is in the UK. We're looking at dates at the end of May to the beginning of June for the Pulev fight. Everywhere is in play. Wow. We've also reached out to Twickenham. The Principality Stadium has gotten some dates for us. So in the ideal world, AJ's next fight will be Kubrat Pulev in London. But this is far from ideal world, particularly in the boxing game. Wow. Listen, we unpack coming to you live. Like, this sounds absolutely ridiculous from Eddie Hearn. Like, I'm almost getting to the point where I'm wondering, where did they even get off saying half of what they say? Probably more than half of what they say in the media and stuff like that. So why? Okay, first of all, Joshua's posting this picture. He's not the A side, bro. He's like in front of some kind of waterfall. He just lost last year. It was a horrible year for him. He did get his belt back, but at what cost? I think his Ruiz fights, both of those, it just really put a damper on the AJ train. It put a damper on the AJ train. Well, I don't have to explain last June how that played out. That was obviously a horrible performance, and he had to come back. And then even in doing so and getting his belts back, I don't really think he put the world on fire with the type of performance. He got his belts back, so props to him for that. But it just didn't seem like the type of performance that had people talking. Like, in Wilder's 2019, he knocked people out of their shoes and stuff. Like, I was at both of those fights, and the Brazil fight in New York all the way to the West Coast in Vegas when he knocked out Luis Ortiz. These were punctuated by the screams of the crowd in two totally different venues, two totally different coasts, West Coast, East Coast, and that was both of Wilder's performances. So I really feel like just Joshua, he got his belts back, but it didn't leave people screaming for, oh, what's next? And then especially when we hear what's next is going to be likely Kubrat Pulev. And I will say one thing that Eddie Hearn said that was interesting is that he says Pulev doesn't want to fight in the UK. So it's going to be bad news for DAZN if they can't get the Pulev fight done. Like, how can you not get what is expected? Like, these aren't really harder fights to make. You get what I'm saying? They're not like mega fights. Kubrat Pulev and AJ, I don't think that's a big fight at all. So if you can't get something like that done, that spells trouble, because that's not even a big fight. So maybe they get it done, but beyond that, I don't think it's just a fight that anyone's desiring. This is a fight that literally was supposed to happen about 2 years ago. And then Carlos Takam, he had to jump in last minute because Kubrat Pulev pulled out 2-3 weeks before the actual fight. And then that fight wasn't that good. So you could see DAZN is in desperate need of a hit, and AJ has to get more of a punctuated victory under his belt, like a performance like kind of how he was performing on the way up, like the guy Eric Molina when he was fighting guys like that, Dominic Brazil. Those were more the performances that had people talking, not these recent Joshua performances. But let's talk about the Wilder situation. We Unpacked, coming to you live. This sounds absolutely ridiculous that Joshua thinks and Eddie Hearn somehow think that they hold the cards in the heavyweight division still. Yes, Joshua has the most belts, but I think people are over that. People are over that whole, notion that just because the quantity, life is not always about quantity, it's about quality. Wilder has been a quality heavyweight that hasn't lost, and he's been undefeated. And recently he's fighting the better competition, with Luis Ortiz, fighting him twice, fighting Bermane Stiverne and knocking him out in one round, and, destroying him in a fashion that no one, even Joe Joyce didn't destroy him in one round like Wilder did. You get what I'm saying? And then knocking Tyson Fury out and fighting him again. So Wilder has a ton of momentum, and I keep saying this is like Eddie Murphy in Trading Places. AJ and Eddie Hearn, they overplayed their hand in a massive, major way, because they overplayed it. They said Joshua was the A side, which he was. He had the most belts, which he has, and which he did have. And they kept holding on to that little bit of I guess clout or power, and we're power tripping. Like, literally, you can, if you go to, let's say, Google, right? I'm trying to type it up for you guys. Let's see if that pulls it up. Boom. So this is what I'm talking about with the power trip. Eddie Hearn says over my dead body is a 50-50 split for Joshua Wilder ever happening. See, Eddie Hearn talks too much. Simply put, he talks too much. He says ever happening. Right? Read it. Eddie Hearn over my dead body is 50-50 split for Joshua Wilder ever happening. See, when DAZN first came out, October 22nd, 2017, this is what he was saying. This is how boastful and braggadocious he was. It's all quoted. The deal in Wilder's head is 50-50 split, but over my dead body is that ever happening, Hearn stated firmly. He hasn't had a serious fight yet, and he needs to fight someone real before he can start making demands. I want him to fight Dillian Whyte on February 3rd, O2 Arena. That would be an absolute tear-up. AJ would buy a ringside for that, etc. Now, fast forward to the future. Wilder still didn't fight Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte's complaining about it. Dillian Whyte is clout chasing Deontay Wilder, saying I've been waiting 1,000 days, and Dillian Whyte's next fight is probably not going to be big news for the boxing world. DAZN is struggling for a major fight that lives up to the hype, does numbers, keeps subscribers, and they got to improve their schedule. So it's just, I don't even have to make this video too long. I know my unpacks are typically a bit longer, but I really don't even have to spend too much time because you guys see it. He says over my dead body is 50-50 ever happening, but now all of a sudden he's saying, oh yeah, we got to give 50-50 because, that's the only way to get it done. So all this newfound thinking, how come you couldn't do that back then? Because they tried to chump Wilder. Wilder outsmarted him. He wins. Point blank period. Because he's still undefeated. Even if he were to lose to Tyson Fury is a good fighter. And I'm not saying Andy Ruiz is not a good fighter, but he beat Klitschko too. So it won't ever be as bad as Andy Ruiz losing to Andy Ruiz, or Joshua losing to Andy Ruiz, a guy who's like 6 feet with a 5-week camp. That shattered the image that they had carefully crafted at Rematch Room for Anthony Joshua. He's a knockout artist. He's supposed to easily walk through Ruiz. Second fight, he beat him, as you see in this picture. But the first fight, definitely wasn't his night. So they lost really all the power. They've been rendered powerless. Joshua, even in his performance, I think another reason why people aren't so sure is because Joshua, he looked skittish in the rematch. He didn't look like he was ready. So, he doesn't look like he was ready for a live dog. Andy Ruiz, he has his own situations that he has to figure out. He's with the new trainer. I made a video about it. He hasn't actually confirmed his trainer, but some people speculate it might be Teddy Atlas. But the thing is, he looked ill-prepared. No matter how you slice it, he looked ill-prepared. He came in 15 pounds heavier than what he did on late notice in the first fight. He says openly that he let fame get to his head. He was eating like crap, etc. So that's what Joshua was in there with. People probably expected a more emphatic Joshua, but Joshua was so, reminiscent of the first fight that he didn't want to take any chances. So people are going to speculate, is Joshua even the same fighter? Because he didn't look like the same fighter. Teddy Atlas famously said it on his show, on his podcast. He says, yeah, they try to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But, in these little moments with Ruiz, when he would slow down and sit and trade, I don't know if Humpty Dumpty is put back together again. And now it's just getting bad because Rematch Room, Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua, they just keep clout chasing Wilder. Tables have turned. Wilder is the star. If he beats Tyson Fury, his star power obviously increases. And, Joshua is becoming more of the afterthought than he's ever been. Before, it was all Joshua. He was the A-side. People acknowledged it. Now he's the one having to claim and proclaim he wants to fight and all this stuff. All stuff he could have did in 2018 but refused to do when Wilder was smoking him out. Now the tables have turned, and Anthony Joshua did an interview with Sky Sports admitting that Wilder is booked up with a part 2 and part 3 trilogy with Tyson Fury with 2 different networks. And now Anthony Joshua is coming to the table and saying, oh, I want to make this work and get the fight cracking and throw a curveball. You want to throw a curveball after it's too late, when he's already occupied. That's just some of the lamest things we've seen in recent boxing. You know, wait till a guy gets booked up, then you know he's booked up and acknowledge that he's booked up. And then now all of a sudden it's imperative that this fight gets done, and, you know, you want nothing more than the fight. But this same energy wasn't present in 2018 when Wilder said he wanted to get in the ring and you wouldn't let him in the ring. And I'm not even gonna, it's not even worth my time to rehash everything in this video. If you follow the channel and you know what I've been saying, you know what new media's been saying, then it's all laid out there for years. So to fast forward and wrap this We Unpacked up, the bottom line is Eddie Hearn and Joshua sound ridiculous constantly talking about Wilder when he's booked up, when he's already in his mega fight. They got to worry about getting Kubrat Pulev in the sack to make that fight. They got to worry about making that fight hot. But they just keep talking about, you know, Wilder and Fury, and I want to fight the winner, and, you know, all things. You know, Joshua did another interview where he left out Pulev and said if he had it up to him, he wants to fight Usyk and then Wilder Fury winner. Well, guess what? You're probably fighting Kubrat Pulev next. So, you know, might as well start hyping that up. So they've overplayed their hand. It is what it is. I have no choice but to be cutthroat and very blunt and very cut and dry about this whole matter, because this is what I've been doing. This is my life's work, and I've been telling you guys the same thing for years. Now I think it's very apparent for all to see why I said it and why I was saying what I was saying. Now you're seeing it more so than ever. Joshua's clout chasing Wilder. He's using his name and Fury's name, especially Wilder, but both Fury and Wilder using their name because they have a big event, staying relevant, knowing they're occupied, knowing that neither one of them is really and truly worried about Joshua. He's fighting Pulev. That's like Will Smith and Martin Lawrence having Bad Boys 3 come out, being worried about another actor with the indie film that's much smaller and it's not getting any real critical acclaim. You know, you have a blockbuster hit movie that's #1 at the box office, grossing money. I'm pretty sure you're not worried about, you know, a rival actor who put out a smaller film that's not making no noise. That's AJ versus Kubrat Pulev is doing no rounds. I don't know anyone that was thrilled to see it the first time, let alone 2-3 years later, now that it's happening, because Pulev remained the mandatory for whatever reason. And the absurdity of Eddie Hearn and Joshua constantly acting like they're in the driver's seat with this whole Wilder stuff is becoming comical to me. Like they're saying, oh, we got a huge bid in Saudi Arabia. How do you have he said, we have a partnership. It's not up to you anymore. You know, what do you mean you have a partnership and huge bid? How do you have a bid and you're not in the driver's seat? Especially like common sense. If Wilder beats Fury, then he just beat Joshua's fellow countryman. Most people believe if Wilder wins, it's going to be emphatic and via knockout or stoppage. You know what I'm saying? An actual brutal knockout or a TKO stoppage. That's his best chances to beat Fury, right? Rather than maybe outboxing him. But, you know, it's boxing. Anything can happen. Either way, it's probably going to get violent, especially if Wilder's the winner. So there's no way on earth Joshua will be the A side. He's not right now. So if Wilder continues to win, or if Fury wins, I mean, whoever wins, they are the #1 heavyweight. So why is Joshua talking about, and his team Joshua, talking about fighting in Saudi Arabia? Tyson Fury has a deal with ESPN, a U.S. company, and he says his fights with them, he said he's doing a couple fights and retiring anyway. And he says his fights, he's not fighting in the UK. He says his fights are contracted for him to fight in America. And you know, if Wilder wins, he's an American who just knocked out, you know, Tyson Fury, presumably, if that's how he wins, right? And why on earth would he go to Saudi Arabia? Why? I mean, why? Money's good, but Wilder's making money in the States, you know? So it's looking like a bad sign. And now it's like the deal. It reminds me of an episode of Martin. There's an episode of Martin where Martin got a speeding ticket and he showed up to court and he was arguing with the judge, and he didn't think the sheriff that gave him the speeding ticket was in the courtroom because he hadn't arrived yet. So the judge says, oh, I guess I have no choice but to dismiss this. And then she was about to bang the gavel, and Martin stopped her. He said, nah, don't bang it just yet. This courtroom, he got cocky. He said, this courtroom, I want y'all to apologize to me. I've been wrongfully accused. And he did this whole like little preamble. And if you watch the Martin Show, that's my favorite show, one of my favorite shows. But if you watch the Martin Show, you'll know exactly what episode I'm talking about. And because of this preamble and this braggadocious like monologue that he was giving about how everyone in the courtroom should apologize to him, he prevented the judge from dismissing the case. And then all of a sudden the sheriff, the cop, walks in and says, wait, don't bang that gavel. We can have a court. I'm showing up. And then Martin was like, nah, bang the gavel, because he didn't want to actually go through with the court case. So he could have had the case dismissed, but because he was talking, because he overplayed his hand and got cocky with it, then he had to actually fight the ticket in court in front of the jury and stuff. It was a funny episode. But that's Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn. All this stuff could have been resolved in 2018. They could have had a great fight. They could have been on a trilogy by now. Joshua could have been making pay-per-view back-end money. He could have had Wilder's belt if he was able to beat him. You know, it could have been the sky's the limit. He would have been a huge star if he would have been able to, 2 undefeated heavyweights, if he would have been able to beat Wilder, if he was able to beat Wilder. And then he ended up getting knocked out for less money against an underdog, an unknown dude like Andy Ruiz. And he's not unknown to real boxing fans, but by and large, he was unknown. He wasn't like a big, commodity. Even in the heavyweight division, he wasn't like one of the up and coming Daniel Dubois. He's been out with Top Rank and stuff. He's been out and nobody was really talking about him, especially after he lost his first title shot to Joseph Parker. So anyway, needless to say, that could have been a big fight. It would have been the biggest fight. But Joshua and Eddie Hearn, they got greedy, they got pompous, they overstayed their welcome, and then now they're in a situation where now they need the clout, and they probably need to provide DAZN a big fight, who's looking to secure a big fight. And for some reason, they're trying to act like they're still in the driver's seat, which is, it's just ironic and funny, because you wouldn't have to worry about this a couple years ago, because AJ was in the driver's seat, but he started power tripping, him and Eddie Hearn, and then now you lost your power, and Joshua's career is kind of on the downtrend. It's not, his aura has been removed. This invincible, bodybuilder and stuff. He had to transform his weight. He got knocked down. We seen him quit. Ford knocked down. It's over. It's over. Not saying he's done as a fighter, but I'm saying it's over because once your aura goes away in that fashion, you don't really get it back. It's like virginity or something. Once you lose it, you just lose it. And I'm not saying he can't be a good fighter or a threat still, but people know, that you're beatable. Before, when you're still undefeated and still looking good, it's just like, damn, how do you beat that pesky Floyd Mayweather? But we seen this man on stage right now beat Joshua, and he didn't even have a full camp. So it's over for that aura of invincibility that Joshua once had. And now his events look like they're on pace and on track to get smaller and smaller, because he don't have any fight. He's already known in the UK, but now he don't have any fights that push him and catapult him to crossover successes that we've seen Manny Pacquiao get, that we've seen Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. get, that we've seen Canelo get, we've seen Conor McGregor get. These guys in combat sports, because they had contemporaries and American names and people who have been branded in America, plus they hyped up their own brands in America, and then boom. But I don't feel like a lot of Americans are even feeling like Joshua is at the top of the totem pole. It's not even just American. Just listen to Sky Sports. Adam Smith of Sky Sports just did an interview post Andy Ruiz. So this is after Joshua got his belts back. And he says, nah, I don't think Joshua's the #1 heavyweight. And that's their network's fighter. So if Adam Smith of Sky Sports don't even think Joshua's #1, what you think Teddy Atlas and myself and other people that have been saying it, professional fighters and trainer, John David Jackson, all these people, what do you think they think? So, man, it's going to be an uphill battle, because they lost that power, and they that's what happens when that's why the old saying, the old adage goes, you got to strike while the iron's hot. They should have made this fight. Boxing keeps making the same mistakes and stepping on its own feet. Make these fights while it's hot. Jermell Charlo could have fought Hurd. They were both undefeated. Then Jermell Charlo lost, and then Hurd lost. You know what I'm saying? So it's still a good fight. Just like Joshua Wilder, okay, that's still a solid fight, but it's not, and it doesn't hold the same merit and weight that it originally would have held. And it's because of Joshua. Wilder's still doing his thing. He's still undefeated at the moment. You feel me? Joshua's not. So he didn't hold his end of the bargain in terms of remaining and preserving that fight to be what we thought it could be 2018 and before, you know, up until he lost his belt June 2019. Now he's clout chasing Wilder when he's tied up. Pitiful. Let me know what you guys think. New media. I've been telling you guys the same stuff. We Unpack, coming to you live. If you love what I'm doing.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button. And you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.